Alright, off we go.
Hello. Today I'm here to talk about the simple DWC, which is deep water culture, or bubbler, or oxypots as people call them.
Bubbler,
yeah.
That's what it's usually known as.
Most people call it an oxypot, a bubbler, deep water culture system. It all represents just this simple system which I'm going to show for you now. Basically how it works is, unlike other systems where you'd usually have some kind of medium holding the roots, how this works is the roots usually stay submerged underwater, and the water is oxygenated with an air pump, and the nutrient solution is mixed in with the water itself, so that the roots get everything that they need, but they aren't held by any kind of soil or rock wool or any other kind of solution medium.
And they're in the water all the time?
They're in the water all the time.
And do they sort of hang down, or do they, well, I suppose the bubbles would expand them in and out?
Exactly. How it usually works is when you first plant into a system like this, your roots would, the bubbling would actually cause a mist up towards the roots. The roots would grow down out of here and into the water. Once they hit the water, the rapid growth starts, because they just go down very quickly. I'll show you the basis of it. How it works is you're usually given anywhere from an 18 to a 24 litre pot. You can obviously go bigger than that if you're doing a homemade version of this setup. You get your bucket. There's two ways of doing this. You can either get a completely closed bucket, but that would be quite difficult to drain the solution out, or you can get something like this, which has a drain valve at the bottom. So whenever you're finished with your nutrient solution and you need to change up the tank, you literally just pop it out here, hit it to the side, let it fall out and refill from the top. I'll show you that now in a minute. The actual way how this system works is you're given a lid like this, which has the mesh in it that will allow the roots to grow out of.
Can we see that close up? You know, it's always good to...
It's a full bucket lid like this with the mesh at the bottom. Another handy thing about this is one of the problems that people can encounter is high humidity, because you have an open amount of water there that would obviously evaporate into the air and cause higher humidity. So these lids with the complete close off, they actually do help quite a lot. Other lids from homemade systems, they're not as good, but this close off lid is very good for the job. How it works basically is you take your young seedling. It would be either in a rock wool cube or in a jiffy pellet, or even another natural form of seedling medium that would hold the seedling. And in just this area of the lid is the only area you need to hold something. Some people use rock wool, some people use clay pebbles. I personally would recommend a combination of shredded rock wool and clay pebbles myself. You pop that into the center and you put this on the top. What's required always in this is oxygenation, because if you just let your roots hang in a water solution with no oxygen in it, the roots themselves would drown and they would die off. How this works is you have a very simple 1-part air pump. This one has 2 outlets on it. Two outlets, basically. Two places where the air is blown out of, basically. So how these would work is the air line is through a drilled hole in the bucket, is passed through the bucket and sent onto the inside. You connect the end of the air line to these air stones. These are basically porous stones that allow the air to be dispersed evenly throughout the bucket, and not for it to have suction back in through the tube. So you attach your air stones like that to the end of your line, drop them into the bottom of the bucket, and pretty much that is literally the basic. Without the plants and without the water, this is the system ready to go on its own. How you'd run it would be, you'd have a separate tank that you'd do your nutrient reading in. You'd add your water to it, you'd add your nutrients to it, you'd check off your pH, your EC. Your pH is basically how acidic or how alkaline your water is.
And your EC is your...
it's the electroconductivity. See, let's say water on its own doesn't actually conduct electricity so well. Like pure, deionized, filtered water will not conduct electricity that well on its own. When you add nutrients and salts to the water, those tiny little particles in that water, they help conduct the electricity. So how you read when your water has, for how many parts per million of water is there a part of nutrient solution, how you check it is that you check pure water on its own and it'll have an electroconductivity of, let's say, 0.1. That'll be the reading that you'll get on your meter. When you add more nutrients to it, obviously you're making the water more conductive. So when you check with the nutrient solution in it, it'll jump up to something like 0.8 or 1.0. So let's say at the beginning of the week you know that the required amount of nutrients that you're starting out on a Monday morning reads at 1.0. Because your roots are in the water, unlike soil or anything else, you don't know how much of the nutrient has been taken up from the water. When you read that at the full level of nutrients your reading is 1.0, 5 or 6 days later, if you check that reading again and it's gone down to, let's say, 0.4, it means that something or some, obviously the plant, I'm not going to say someone, has taken those nutrients and those salts out of the water because it's gone down. So you know that your plant has eaten 0.6 or 60% of the nutrients that you've given it. So that's how people measure their feeding schedule.
That's the main way.
Yeah, well, again, it's not overly important when using soil, but for this particular type of hydroponic growing, it's a lot more important, because otherwise you wouldn't know what level your plant is eating. You could do a rough estimate where every week you just top it up to a certain amount and let them go, and if they look grand, they look grand. But to get the optimum results out of a system like this, it's best to have your nutrients and your pH read quite importantly. Because certain nutrients won't get taken up. If it's too alkaline or if it's too acidic, they won't get taken up either, so that's why the pH is important. So basically, how you get this to work is at the start of the week, whenever you're at the beginning stage of when you're starting to go. Sorry, can I start again? You can edit this, can't you?
Well, I'll have to. Won't I?
Yeah, exactly. At the beginning,
you're doing quite well there.
Yeah, at the beginning of whenever you're planting up into this, you put your nutrient solution into the bucket here. You'll turn on your air pump. You'll check your reading. You'll have your plant sitting in a small medium right here, whether it be rock wool, whether it be cocoa, whether it be, I wouldn't recommend cocoa for something like this actually. It's better to get a solid medium like rock wool or clay pebbles, something that won't go through the mesh.
And do you fill that thing with this medium, or do you just have it like a
it's
seed
best to
inside
kind
the
of fill it, to be honest with you. Just this little bit of it, it's a ½ litre container, it's best to fill that with the medium. It both gives the stem something strong to be held onto, and it gives the roots a little bit of, when your roots have to climb down to reach the water, the more that they go, the longer that the roots will be, the better root system that you'll have. So how that'll work is you'll have your air pump plugged in, so it's constantly pulling air in from the outside and oxygenating the water there. All the time you need to have the air pump on, that's the one thing I always say. You'll have your nutrient solution filled in here, your plant will be sitting in there. When it's time for you to change your nutrient solution after a few days, you can just, I don't know if you can see from there, it's got just this little lid that you can, I'll bring it close to you. In the lid here, it's just got this little area that you can pop off here. I'll show you now. You pop it off there, you can pass a EC meter or a pH meter in there to read your readings, to get your readings. It'll also help for the refilling. For not having to open the lid again, what you can do is you've got a drain valve tube here. So how that would work is you'd run your nutrient solution up to where you're going. To drain it out, you just turn this sideways like that and out. All the water will drain back out, and then you can refill from the top again. So as that you won't have to lift the lid or change buckets or anything like that. It's a handy little innovation they got with these. Back when I was using this about a year ago, I didn't have this on it. I had to change my buckets personally. But with this particular way of doing it, it's a lot easier. Again, there's many benefits to this. The speed of growth it's increased quite a lot. You can get larger and quicker plants. Okay, you can get plants to a bigger size quicker with this because it's a constant oxygenated roots, constant nutrient uptake. It also, you have a large area, so you can have, but with this particular way of doing it, it's a lot easier. Again, there's many benefits to this. The speed of growth it's increased quite a lot. You can get larger and quicker plants. Okay, you can get plants to a bigger size quicker with this because it's a constant oxygenated roots, constant nutrient uptake. It also, you have a large area, so you can have as big a root mass as possible. There's also many benefits that because you're not using a medium, it's a bit cleaner as well. The only real mess you're going to get into is a spill of water, but if you can calmly do your job properly in this, you're not really going to spill that much water. Obviously mistakes will happen, but
And so you take this and you stick it inside a grow tent with a lamp, and then you're good to go.
You're good to go. Literally, it's the possible. There's also many benefits that because you're not using a medium, it's a bit cleaner as well. The only real mess you're going to get into is a spill of water. But if you can calmly do your job properly in this, you're not really going to spill that much water. Obviously, mistakes will happen, but.
And so you take this and you stick it inside a grow tent with a lamp, and then you're good to go.
You're good to go. Literally, it's an all-encompassing thing that you don't need anything else with this. Your lights and your air and all, they're outside, they're environmental issues. But as far as a growing system is concerned, this doesn't need to be in a tent. It can be outside of a tent, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
You could, if you wanted to, you could run this outside if you could get an extension lead outside to a balcony or something. You can run one of these outside. But then again, you'd be facing one or two other problems because if it was a very sunny country, the black rubber or the black plastic attracts the sun, heats the water, and obviously you don't want that to happen. To avoid that, you might be able to put it in some shade or something. I don't know, I'm kind of going off into a tangent with that. But again, as far as a combination of simplicity and space saving with large results, it's a fantastic system. The only thing that really needs to be done with this to make sure that you're successful at the end of the day is that you do have to maintain and monitor your EC, your pH, and just to make sure, because again you don't have the safety zone and the safety buffer of soil or anything else. If something goes wrong, it goes wrong immediately to the saving with large results. It's a fantastic system. The only thing that really needs to be done with this to make sure that you're successful at the end of the day is that you do have to maintain and monitor your EC, your pH, and just to make sure, because again you don't have the safety zone and the safety buffer of soil or anything else. If something goes wrong, it goes wrong immediately to the roots. If you go away for a weekend and your air pump turns off, that's 48 hours that your roots have been sitting in water that has no oxygen in it, and they're
going to die.
Dying off. Yeah.
And is this expensive, or is this cheap?
Not necessarily. Like the retail price of this system on its own, including the bucket, the pump, and everything else, it's €55, which
that's good value.
It's for a weekend and your air pump turns off. That's 48 hours that your roots have been sitting in water that has no oxygen in it, and they're
going to die.
Dying off. Yeah.
And is this expensive, or is this cheap?
Not necessarily. Like the retail price of this system on its own, including the bucket, the pump, and everything else, it's €55, which
that's good value.
It's not like, for example, if you wanted to do 10 individual plants, that would be €550. Obviously, you wouldn't get 10 one system things like this. You'd get a 10-pot version of this, whereas you can have a larger air pump that will have 8 or 9 extensions going off into it, so that you can have just one pump to power it. Because if you're going to buy one pump that's worth €60, or buy 5 pumps that are worth €40 each, you know what I mean? It's obviously a difference in the price, but as far as value for money and maintenance, it's a very good system.
And you put one plant into this. I mean, you can't.
You would. It's a one-plant system, I'm afraid. If I'm sure 2 plants can be put into it, and I don't see why not. They'd be fighting for space, but to get the optimum results from a plant, use it as a one-plant system.
Okay, right.